Hi, Bob Kalishman here for Millennium. It's been a while since I've spoken to my audience, but I feel I like to come back and more or less rejuvenate a commercial, or more or less a program that's more timely. And in effect, I think I have a treat for you today, in the sense that today we're going to be discussing the Medal of Honor and two Marine Corps Raider battalions that from their inception in World War II. And that's the 1st Raider Battalion, headed by Red Dog Mike Etzen, and the 2nd Raider Battalion, headed by Brigadier General Carlson. These were two innovators of the Marine Corps Raider Battalion, and two men that were very, very responsible, and they made it happen, that turned the tide for the American forces in the Pacific at Guadalcanal. Up to that time, every battle that the American forces were involved in, they were beat. They were beat severely by the Japanese. We had lost the Philippines, and we were just taking a severe beating by the Japanese Imperial Army, Navy, and their Air Force. However, the Marine Corps made the first landing on Guadalcanal and helped turn the tide of battle. However, before I go into that, being that in a month or so we'll be starting to celebrate our Memorial Day and remembering our dead, which the holiday Memorial Day is dedicated to. It's dedicated to the forgotten men and women who have died throughout the wars that the United States of America has engaged in. And before I go into that, I just like to briefly recite a poem to the dying soldier. And the world won't note his passing, though a soldier died today. When politicians leave this earth, their bodies lie in state. Why thousands note their passing and proclaim they were great. Papers tell of their life story from the time they were young, but the passing of a soldier goes unnoticed and unsung. In this greatest contribution to the welfare of the land, some jerk who breaks his promise and cons his fellow man, or the ordinary fellow in the time of war and strife goes off to serve his country and offers up his life. The politician's stipends and the style in which he lives are often disproportionate to the service that he gives, while the ordinary soldier who offers up his all, he pays off with a medal and perhaps a pension small. It's so easy to forget them, for it is so many times that our Bobs and Junes and Johnnies, Bobs, went to battle, but we know it is not the politician with this compromised ploy who won for us the freedom that our country now enjoy. Should you find yourself in danger and your enemies at hand, would you really want some cop-out with his ever-wanting stand, or would you want a soldier, his home, his country, his kin, just a common soldier who would fight until the end? He was just a common soldier, and his ranks are growing thin, but his presence should remind us that we may need this like again. For when countries are in conflict, we find the soldier's part is to clean up all the trouble that the politicians start. If we cannot do him honor while he's here to hear the praise, then at least let's give him homage at the ending of his days. Perhaps just a simple headline in the paper that might say, "Our country is in mourning. A soldier died today." And we have the other poem by McCrae that is more or less attached to World War I, and that's in Flanders Field by Joel M. McCrae, and it was written 1950. And I think the author was a Canadian soldier or a Canadian surgeon. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks will bravely sing and fly. Scare heard among the guns below, we are the dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from falling hands we throw, the torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies blow in Flanders Field. And that concludes the poem of World War II. But I'd just like to more or less go through something that I'm sure, and I hope I'm not right, that we've all forgotten. And that's the Connecticut dead that we've lost in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the first one I can remember was in Iraq. It was a Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, what we call a lifer. He was dedicated to the Marine Corps and was going to serve 30 years. And his name was Philip Jordan. He was 42 when he was killed defending our country, and he was a Marine. The next Marine was Kim Mo Fo Kanawa. He was a Marine. He was from Waterford. And then the next soldier, Army, PFC, Wilford Perez, 24, Norwalk. Richard Eaton, 37, Guilford. Davis Travis Fradick, Norwalk. Anthony D. Agustinello, 31, Waterbury. Jeffrey Baum, 19. He was from Suffield, right up the street. Meredith Hobart, 22, East Hampton. Jacob Martyr, 21, Norwich. William Brandon, 36, Bethany. Eric Paluda, 28, West Hartford. Titus Avery Feder, 22, Bridgeport. Felix Del Greco. This is a soldier that at the time was a sergeant, and he went to Simsbury High School, made the supreme sacrifice for his country in Simsbury, and his name is Felix Del Greco. And in my opinion, Felix Del Greco should have the memorial block down on Inaros Boulevard entering into the Performing Arts Center. That was denied him by Tom Vincent. Nathan Bucker Hall, 24, Ridgefield. Another Marine. Kevin J. Dempsey, 25. He was from Monroe. Joseph Noland. He was from Waterbury, 27. Henry Izeri, 32, Waterbury. Robert Holt, 21, Ashford, right up the street. Thomas E. Viganello, 18, West Haven. Lawrence R. Philippon, Marine Corps, sniper, West Hartford. We have a road just outside of Farmington Avenue leading at the reservoir that's named, he was a Lance Corporal Philip Lawrence R. Philippon. The highway is named after him. Another Marine, John T. Smith III, he was from Brockford, 21 years old. All these men made the supreme sacrifice, and we're still at it. And where is our Senator Blumenthal? And where is our Senator Murphy? They're running around hollering sanctuary cities, right? Hollering, defending the same people that are helping to kill our guys. It's a fact. You can't skirt it one way. They kill them in Afghanistan and they run into Pakistan. Where has Senator Blumenthal been? He's running around to the federal courthouse hollering, oh, you can't send them back. Why don't he go to Pakistan and tell them, hey, stop killing our guys and get rid of the Taliban who are hiding out? And they say they're unbeknownst to the Pakistanis. They're known, they know where they are. And they give them safe harbor and our men can't go in and get them. And that's the short and the tall. And it's sad. Now, I like to discuss the 1st and 2nd Raider Battalion. The 1st Medal of Honor winner from a state that's a neighbor of ours to the north, Vermont. And there's where General, at the time he was a colonel, Red Mike Edson. And he was called Red Mike Edson because he had a red beard. And he was given the Medal of Honor in Guadalcanal in a place called Bloody Ridge, where many Marines died. And they helped turn the tide and win for us the Second World War. And this is what his Medal of Honor citation reads. Citation for extraordinary heroism and conspicuous intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty as commanding officer of the 1st Marine Raider Battalion with parachute battalion attached during action against enemy Japanese forces in the Solomon Islands. In the Solomon Islands on the night of 14th September, that was 13th and 14th September 1942, after the airfield on Guadalcanal had been seized from the enemy, and on August 8th, Edson, with a force of 800 men, was assigned to the occupation and defense of a ridge dominating the jungle on either side of the airport, facing a formidable Japanese attack, which, augmented by infiltration, had crushed through our lines. He, by skillfully handling his troops, successfully withdrew his forward units to reserve line with minimum casualties. Then the enemy, in a subsequent series of violent assaults, engaged our forces in desperate hand-to-hand combat with bayonet, rifle, pistol, grenade, knives, nails, hands, fingers. Colonel Edson, although continuously exposed to hostile enemy fire throughout the night, personally directed defense of the reserve, positioned against a fanatic foe of greatly superior number. By his astute leadership and gallant devotion to duty, he enabled his men, despite severe losses, to cling tenaciously to their positions on the vital ridge, thereby retaining command not only of the Guadalcanal airfield, but also of the 1st Division's entire offensive installation and the surrounding areas. And at this time, it must be added that there was a major, and his name was Kenneth D. Bailey. He was a Marine Corps major who had served a lot of sea duty aboard cruisers. And when the Raiders formed up, he became a Raider. And he became attached to the 1st Raider Battalion. And as such, was a leader in helping the Raider. And the type of leader or military leader this Major Kenneth D. Bailey was that in those days a machine gun, a heavy machine gun, weighed roughly about 50, 60 pounds. And with the tripod and the cooler system and the ammunition, it was well over, these fellas were carrying well over 100 pounds. And he was the type of fella, he was a machine gunner's friend. And this is a major in the Marine Corps. And he would come along leading his men. And when the machine gunners were, you have to realize, Guadalcanal, you had a humidity and you had temperatures that were 103, 105 degree in the heat. And God knows what it was in the sun, but a lot of these fellows were in the jungle, so they had the canopy. But nevertheless, he would go along, and the gunners that were struggling along, it was not beyond him to say, okay, corporal or private or sergeant, let me take the gun. And he'd carry that gun until that sergeant or corporal or previous C had himself put together and took the gun back. And he ended up with the Medal of Honor. And one of the machine gunners, John Basilone from New Jersey, who they celebrate every year, won the Medal of Honor. And to his second sacrifice, he wasn't as lucky as the first medal, and at Iwo Jima, he lost his life. That's John Basilone. So, this is the stock that we give to the country. And it was the 1st and 2nd Raiders. And we have to mention, and we can't go unnoticed without mentioning Colonel Carlson. He was the installer of the Marine Corps Raiders. He brought the concept of gung-ho, the Chinese saying, work together. He brought that concept to the Marine Corps. He brought it to the 1st and 2nd Raider battalions. And he served extraordinarily well. He was the son of a minister from New York State, another neighbor of ours. And he instituted the 13-man Marine Corps squad, which consisted of heavy weapons, fire superiority, and it's still used today. And the concept is still with us because fire superiority in a firefight, that's two groups fighting each other with rifles. Fire superiority is the dominant factor. And I just like to read you a poem that one of his men wrote for him or wrote for the Raiders. In the memory of the men and women were brave and fought like heroes of old, but none of the fame who carried the name of Carlson's Raiders so bold. They were gathered from near and gathered from far. They were picked from the best in the land. A hell-raising crew that sailed the blue was Carlson's Raiders band. They carried machine guns like pistols, they say, in a knife that was tempered in hell. And the Raiders all claimed no moral by name could use them 1/4 as well. They whispered of Raiders who gambled with death and fought like the demons of old. And those who are willing to swear by Carlson's Raiders so bold. They will sing of the sailor and soldier, I know, and tell of the deeds that were done. But Carlson's Raiders, we sing for themselves and tell how the battle was won. So here's the Raider who stands by his flag, who offers his life for his land, who marches to fame with pride in the name of Carlson Raiders Band. And that more or less concludes our tribute to the 1st and 2nd Raider Battalion. Now, I'll take a minute or so of your time, possibly 5 minutes. I'd like to announce that I'm now a candidate and I'm running for not selectman, but I'm running for state representative from the 16th district, and I would like you to send me to Hartford. I feel, after time and time again, looking at the Hartford legislature, which is dominated by Democrats, mistake after mistake after mistake is made. We have just recently, by one vote, and I like to think, in my opinion, it was the Simsbury Democrat that voted for the Chief Justice, who happens to not have the persuasion of a normal man or woman, in my opinion. And this is not an example I feel we'd be showing our people in Simsbury. And I feel very strongly about that. And if you want to ask me what I want to stand on, I'll hide behind the Bible. The Bible tells us, man shall not lay down with man. It's against his law. And I'm against it. And the marijuana law, which they're discussing now, I make a pledge. If I'm in the State House in Hartford, you'll never see marijuana as a state law in Connecticut. It's wrong. And I've been speaking out against it from the day of its inception, from the day it was passed by our zoning board. And the office and the property that the people, Curaleaf, I think they're called, moved into, was owned by a felon. He was a government felon that was convicted by the United States government for wire fraud, tampering, God knows what else. And he's one of the men that profited and is probably profiting now from the sale of that property that he bought from Ensign Bickford. And Ensign Bickford has to share some of the blame. They leased the property or sold the property to him. And it was known, and this is not my opinion, this is not me speaking, this is the Hartford Courant speaking. The Hartford Courant ran an ad on the felon who was convicted in a federal court in Boston. And it's in the Hartford Courant. And if our town would own up to it, they would have discussed it before they allowed the marijuana to be produced or grown in Simsbury under state law, or under state grant. And I like to remind each and every one, this is not Robert Kalishman speaking, this is your federal government. This is the United States of America federal government's law that states it is unlawful to consume, grow, possess marijuana. It's unlawful from the federal law. And here again, our Senator Blumenthal and our Senator Murphy does not insist that the marijuana laws be enforced in the state of Connecticut. The federal marijuana laws be enforced in Connecticut. What is he doing? He's running off supporting sanctuary cities. And he has to shoulder some of the blame, in my opinion, of these youngsters that are being saved each and every day by our gallant men and women of the Simsbury's finest, the Simsbury Police Force. You don't realize the lives that are being saved through drugs by our brave men and women of the Simsbury Police Force. It's unconscionable. And hopefully the town will get out from under and will start addressing this problem, this scourge that we have on our community. And I call it a scourge. And here again, our representative, our Democratic representative, is down in the State House discussing marijuana this very minute. It's being discussed in the State House in Hartford. They're debating whether or not to allow marijuana into our community. A drug that's mixed with the phenols and the others and is killing our youth. This is what they want to introduce and legalize in Connecticut. Is it right? And don't tell me, oh, we'll get a lot of money in taxes. I can tell you a lot of things that you'll get a lot of money in taxes, but it's not morally right, and it's against God's law. So I thank you for allowing me into your homes. I wanted to point out a few of these poignant facts that you're not told about and that they've been hiding from you year in and year out. And I apologize for the tax increase that probably will be coming down and the assessments that you're being assessed on property that you can't get half the dollar for, that has more or less devalued in dollars. Thank you for allowing me into your home.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.